The issue is one of a perennial series of motions of no confidence that we see on a very regular basis in Vanuatu. It's driven largely by domestic concerns. We saw a falling out between two of the top politicians in the ruling government not so long ago, and now he's one of the people driving this motion of no confidence against the Prime Minister. Now, what happened was they went into Parliament and voted, and there was a clear majority in favor of removing the Prime Minister. But what wasn't clear was whether they had enough votes to actually constitute an absolute majority of Parliament, which is another factor. Now, the courts have said yes, they have. That decision was appealed earlier today, sometime before 3 p.m. today. We expect a decision coming from the appeals court shortly. I don't think it'll be long. I'd be very surprised if it didn't come out sometime this week.
And what happens when a decision about the appeal is handed down?
Well, we wait for the decision. Unless the appeal is overturned, Ishmael Kalsakau is no longer Prime Minister. The vote was ruled valid by a lower court, and therefore Parliament would go back and they would elect a new Prime Minister. Now, my understanding is there isn't a solid agreement among opposition MPs, the people who have opposed the Prime Minister, to decide who actually they're going to vote for. So there's a great deal of uncertainty right at this time, and this weekend has seen a lot of backroom horse trading.
What is the process to vote in a new leader?
Well, we would expect the parties to make an agreement between themselves. Then they're mandated to arrive in Parliament within a very limited period of time. It's a matter of days. And at that point, they begin voting for the Prime Minister. That follows a parliamentary process that's quite similar to what you would see in Australia if a vote of no confidence were to happen there. In other words, the government members, well, all the MPs vote for a Prime Minister. That Prime Minister is the person backed by the majority of MPs. They form a government, a cabinet, and you're off to the races again.
How disruptive is all of this to Vanuatu politics, and what do members of the public think?
Well, sadly, it's all too familiar an event. We've seen dozens of motions of no confidence in the past decades. Very few governments have survived their entire 4-year term in office. And the people of Vanuatu generally feel that this is a waste of government resources, that it diverts from policy making, and that it diverts from the effectiveness of government at all. That's a very, very widespread opinion. Sadly, it's an opinion that doesn't appear to be held by the MPs themselves.
And Dan, while all of this has been happening, China has sent police experts and equipment to the country. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's not entirely unexpected that China would try to do this sort of thing. Some people have painted the Kalsakau opposition tiff as a sort of an east-west pull, push and pull kind of thing. That's not the case. This is being driven by domestic politics. It's quite clear. I mean, Ishmael Kalsakau himself was the one who agreed to allow these Chinese advisors to come in, and he, in fact, was there to welcome them when they arrived. So the contention that, you know, one of our politicians is friendlier to China than another is not borne up by the facts. I think what we're going to see is a little more of that sort of careful balancing. The AFP have had a long-standing relationship with the Vanuatu police force, as have the New Zealand police. So the Chinese would be expected, at least on the face of things, they'd be expected to sort of join the club, to be another member of the happy family, and to get along. That said, there are very obvious concerns about what Chinese police will be teaching to Vanuatu police. And certainly for anybody who respects democratic norms and the rule of law, it's cause for real concern.
Meanwhile, the United Liberation Movement for West Papua's bid to gain full membership of the Melanesian Spearhead Group has been unsuccessful so far. What has been said about this?
That's right. And this is seen by the majority of the people, the populace of Melanesia, as a betrayal, a political betrayal. I saw somebody earlier today who's been a constant figure, a rather senior figure in Vanuatu culture and in the pro-West Papua independence movement. He said, effectively, you guys are all the same, referring to the politicians to the leaders who made this decision. And the last sentence he said was, West Papua is no more. So people feel that this is a really seminal moment in the history of the independence movement, and many feel that it could be the final nail in the coffin.
Dan McGarry, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.